It's Labor Day here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with South Korea's nuclear power plant project in the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic has officially picked South Korea to construct 2 nuclear reactors at the Dukovany nuclear power plant, which will be South Korea's first such project in a European country. The U.S. and Ukraine have signed a deal to form the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund, with the deal giving Washington its much-wanted access to Ukrainian rare earth minerals. The Supreme Court is set to make a ruling on Democratic Party presidential candidate Ejyang's election law violation case at 3 p.m. on Thursday. He will not show up as the defendant's attendance is not mandatory. South Korea is set to sign a contract next Wednesday to build 2 nuclear reactors in the Czech Republic, marking the country's first nuclear plant export in 16 years and also securing a foothold in Europe. Our Lee Soo-jin starts us off.
South Korea has been officially confirmed as the contractor for the Czech Republic's new nuclear power plant project. Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala said on Wednesday that a contract to build 2 reactors at the Dukovany power plant will be signed with the state-run Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power on May 7th. This comes as the Czech government announced that it will take an 80% stake in a subsidiary of a state-run energy company CEZ in charge of construction to finance the project, resolving one of the key hurdles to finalizing the nuclear power deal with Korea. CEZ had been pursuing alternative financing options after the government expanded the project from a single unit to 2, estimated to cost more than 26 trillion won, or around $18 billion. The project marks the first export of a nuclear power plant by a South Korean company since the Barakah nuclear plant in the United Arab Emirates in 2009. And if the Czech government later confirms plans to add 2 new units to the Temelin nuclear power plant, Korea is expected to be granted priority negotiation rights for that project too. A consortium led by the KHNP was selected in July 2024 as the preferred bidder to build the nuclear reactors, beating France's EDF and Westinghouse from the US thanks to its competitive pricing and ability to follow tight construction timelines. While the deal was supposed to be finalized in March this year, it was delayed following complaints filed by EDF and Westinghouse against the decision. But the path to moving forward with the deal was cleared as Westinghouse and KHNP in January reached an agreement to settle the intellectual property dispute, and Czech authorities dismissed EDF appeals in April. The trial operation of the first nuclear unit is set for 2036, with the second to follow shortly after, aligning with the Czech Republic's goal of having 50% of its energy generated by nuclear power by 2050. South Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said that it welcomes the announcement of the official contract signing date and that it will make every effort to ensure a successful signing ceremony. The ceremony is expected to take place in Prague with representatives from KHNP and the CEZ subsidiary, as well as government officials from both countries. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The U.S. and Ukraine have signed an economic partnership deal whereby the 2 countries will cooperate to establish an investment fund to help rebuild Ukraine. The U.S. Treasury Department said Wednesday that the deal would see the U.S. develop and profit from Ukraine's vast natural resources, including critical minerals and the minerals vital to modern manufacturing, as the U.S. contributes to a reconstruction fund for Ukraine. The long-awaited signing came just days after the leaders of the 2 countries met on the sidelines of Pope Francis' funeral in Vatican City last weekend. The star of Donald Trump's second term in office has produced a shrinking U.S. GDP, but the Trumps labeled this as an overhang from the previous Joe Biden administration, and that with patience, the U.S. will boom after the tariffs soon start kicking in. Ejyang reports.
According to a Commerce Department report released on Wednesday, U.S. GDP in the first quarter of this year contracted 0.3%, marking the lowest GDP since the first quarter of 2022. The latest GDP reading is also lower than what was forecast by economists, which according to FactSet was 0.8% growth, still down from the 2.4% growth recorded in the fourth quarter of last year. The greatest cause for this sharp slowdown seems to have been President Trump's trade tariffs. Imports soared 41.3% in the first quarter, which threw the balance of trade off, largely by the rush to bring in imports before the tariffs went up. But President Trump, during a cabinet meeting at the White House, blamed former President Biden for the contraction and even suggested that some responsibility for the next quarter would be Biden's as well, saying that such changes in the economy don't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis. Trump also said in a Truth Social post, quote, "This is Biden's stock market, not Trump's. I didn't take over until January 20th. Stock market volatility ensued following the release of the GDP report. But both the S&P and Dow marked their seventh straight day of gains. The S&P closing up 0.15%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.35%. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq Composite dropped 0.09%. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, the indicator for measuring inflation, stayed unchanged in March after advancing 0.4% in February. In the 12 months through March, the PCE increased 2.3% after rising 2.7% in February last year. Based on Wednesday's Commerce Department data, the economy is holding up for now, but uncertainty is rising as Trump's tariffs could upend the global order as well as the U.S. economy. The latest figures don't actually reflect President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, as those were announced on April 2nd, just after the end of the first quarter. As some of those tariffs have already been paused or modified, analysts are expecting a more pronounced slowdown in growth later this year as consumers and businesses adjust. Meanwhile, President Trump wrote for everybody to be patient, saying the U.S. will soon boom after the tariffs start kicking in and after the Biden overhang is gone. Economists say the tariffs could weaken economic growth and stoke inflation, but analysts still say 1 quarter of negative GDP growth is not itself a sign that a recession is underway. Ejyang, Arirang News.
The Czech Republic made it official on Wednesday that South Korea will be in charge of an $18 billion project to build 2 nuclear reactors in its country, South Korea's debut in the European market. Let's discuss more with Professor Ejyang this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So South Korea is the first overseas nuclear power plant project in 16 years. And it's also, like I mentioned, the very first nuclear power plant project with a European country, isn't it?
Yes, yesterday, the Czech government confirmed the contract to build 2 reactors at the Kovany power plant with the KHNP standing for Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power. I think about the 3 major meanings from this official announcement. The first one is now South Korea, as you mentioned, South Korea has made a very strong foothold in the hub of European market. And also this the nuclear power plant project, because Europe has maintained a very strong hub of this market, a nuclear power plant market. And secondly, the Korean companies and Korean government has come to establish very strong reputations because they successfully moved into the European market. And the third, well, somehow we have struggled with the nuclear power plant due to our political tensions and also the terrible tsunami accident in Japan. But now this market is recovered due to heavy demand for AI and also war between Ukraine and Russia. So I think the Korean government in Korea has taken over a very right moment and momentum to move into this high demanding market for electricity due to the successful launching of a nuclear power plant project in Czech.
An excellent opportunity for South Korea, of course, but I do have to say it's a splendid achievement that South Korea had to overcome numerous challenges to bring home the deal. Let's talk about those challenges that we had to go through.
Yes, there were 3 major challenges until they arrived at this official confirmed this project. First one is, well, KHNB earned the preferred bidder status in last year.
Right.
But somehow the Westinghouse and EDF filed appeals with the Czech competition authorities. citing the patent infringement and unfair selection process. In October, Czech authority dismissed this appeal. So that was the first challenge. And second one is now Czech asked for the 60% of localization rate. And also the Westinghouse called for their own significant proportion of all the projects with the KH&P. So at the moment, we have no idea how much proportion the KH&P promised with the Westinghouse. So somehow they end up with great deals between the KH&P and Westinghouse in last January. They resolved the conflict over IP infringement. So that was the second challenge. And third challenge came up in early this year in January, because the Department of Energy in the United States put the South Korea as lowest category of sensitive and other designated countries in the technical security issues.
Right.
Somehow the Korean government had resolved this conflict as time passes by. So those were three very significant the challenges.
Well, then again, why do you think the Czech government decided to go with South Korea eventually? Why not the U.S. or, your friends after all these hurdles you just mentioned? Why Korea after all?
All the time there are two very critical success factors for the huge scale of project: time and budget. So, well, KH&P, they put the slogan "on time within budget." So they, emphasized several times to Czech government that they will keep the due dates within the promised the budget. But this is very, very, very hard the vision, because even though the current KH&P earned their first project with the United Arab Emirates 6 years ago, but they have a struggle. They could not keep the budget, and the time was delayed. But this is a very serious and significant challenge. But they promised several times that they will keep those two major constraints to make a huge success from this project, and that successfully persuaded Czech government.
And of course, it's an $18 billion project we're talking about. But the question is, can we expect to see long-term stable profits out of the project? Because there are voices of concerns that we may not.
Yes, well, there are a couple of reasons for this concern. The first one, as I already mentioned, 6 years ago, the KH&P made a contract for the Baraka in UAE. They expect about 10% of a profit rate, but as the project has been delayed and the profitability has moved down into the negative areas. So again, there are many, many concerns about this long-time and huge-scale project. It's very likely that we cannot keep the promise as we had planned in the beginning. And second one, there was a strong demand from Czech government for the localization rate, and also the Westinghouse, a demand for a significant proportion for this project. Those factors may make a significant impact on the profitability. But the problem is we have no idea of the details, all this, even the revenue scale or proportion rate or localization rate.
Right.
But, we earned about $80 billion when we built 4 reactors in UAE. Now we earn almost similar revenues for the 2 reactors. So many people have very, the positive estimation for this project, though.
Then can we have our hopes high about clinching another nuclear power plant project? Because like my colleague Lee Soo-jin reported, the Czech Republic is considering building 2 additional reactors over in Temelin, right?
Yes, not just Czech. We have Finland, we have Poland, Bulgaria, Turkey, UK, Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Vietnam. There are many, many countries who declared to build a new power plants because they cannot stand all the huge demand, huge demand due to AI, operations. And there was a very positive estimate from the directors of WNA, Sama Bilbao. He mentioned that until 2050, all the nuclear power plants need to increase their electric power generations by 3 times in 20 years or 25 years. So we can expect very positive and huge demand for electricity, and there's no other way, no alternatives but the nuclear power plant to increase the electricity in that short period of time.
It's not just semiconductors or cars that will keep us fed. It's now a grand nuclear power project over in Czech Republic. Professor Yang, thank you as always for joining us, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. The Supreme Court will rule this afternoon on the election law violation case of the Democratic Party presidential candidate Ejyang. Now, he will not appear in court as the defendants are not required to be present. The ruling follows an appeal by prosecutors against a high court ruling last month that had overturned an initial guilty verdict. The top court decided last week to have the full bench oversee the case and reviewed it at an unusually fast pace. He was convicted of making false statements during the previous presidential campaign, including denying ties to a key figure involved in a land development scandal in Seongnam during a media interview back in 2021. He is also accused of having made false claims that there was a pressure from South Korea's land ministry to rezone a research institute site in the Baekhyundong area of Seongnam. The ruling will be broadcast live on TV and the court's YouTube channel. With the U.S. looking to reconstruct its own shipbuilding industry, it's turning to South Korea for their grand project. And the U.S. Navy chief came to Korea for visits to major shipyards here for cooperation between Seoul and Washington. Our Ejyang reports.
U.S. Navy Secretary John Fallon is on a visit to South Korea in a move to enhance bilateral cooperation in the shipbuilding sector under U.S. President Donald Trump's leadership. According to industry sources, Fallon is visiting HD Hyundai Heavy's headquarters in Ulsan and Hana Ocean's shipyard in Jeju on Wednesday, both located in the southern region of the country. He is expected to meet with the company's top executives, including HD Hyundai Vice Chairman Chung Gi-sun and Hana Group Vice Chairman Kim Dong-kwan, to discuss potential collaboration in areas of naval shipbuilding, maintenance, repairs, and overhauls. The Navy chief's visit comes as Trump has highlighted the need to revitalize America's shipbuilding industry and the importance of partnering with allies, including South Korea, a global powerhouse in naval vessel construction. Before arriving in South Korea, Fallon visited Japan, where he toured local shipyards and met with Japanese Defense Minister Ken Nakatani to seek bilateral cooperation in naval ship maintenance.
The competition with China, especially regarding the scale of warships, is so fierce that the U.S. shipbuilding industry cannot effectively compete. This is why President Trump plans to revive it.
Meanwhile, acting President Han Duck-soo met with John Fallon on Wednesday morning to discuss cooperation in the shipbuilding sector, including strategies to integrate this collaboration into broader trade negotiations. Ejyang, Arirang News.
South Korean Netflix series When Life Gives You Tangerines, known as 폭삭 속았수다 in Korean, has become a hit both at home and abroad. Now, what's so special about it? Our An Sung-jin tells us.
되는 게 뭐 별거냐? 똑같아.
This line from the last episode of the Korean drama When Life Gives You Tangerines captures one of the underlying meanings of the series, living life. The story of a young couple on Jeju Island and how their life progresses through many ups and downs caught many sniffling throughout the episodes of this heartwarming story.
Across generations, these stories and the lines from the characters were very relatable in talking about life and values because it revolves around family.
Such storylines have resonated with viewers from around the world as the show topped Netflix's global non-English show chart.
The theme is so universal. The fact that there are Korean themes involved is part of the fascination and the interest for me as a Westerner. That show makes me feel I'm there. I feel part of their life. I feel I'm experiencing what it's like to be in Korea during this stretch of time. I think it's absolutely universal.
The series' Korean title uses a phrase from Jeju dialect, 폭삭 속았수다, which translates to "you've worked hard." The drama portrays glimpses of the beautiful scenery of Jeju Island as a background to key events in their life. The characters grow up on Jeju's rocky shores in the 1950s, and these scenes were filmed around Kimyeong Beach, where haenyeo, or female divers, can often be seen, a symbol of Jeju Island. They fall in love in the warm, bright canola fields in the 1960s, another endearing sight on the island during April and May. The characters take part in a writing contest at the Jeju-mok government office, capturing the history of Jeju. And other scenes show off the island's natural beauty.
This site right here was one of the places where the scenes of the drama was filmed. You can also get a glimpse of the traditional houses that represent Jeju Island.
The local government is developing programs so that tourists can visit these locations easily.
Through hosting drama filming locations and investing more in these programs, we hope to further invigorate Jeju's content and tourism business.
So for those who haven't had a chance yet to catch up with the series, why not give it a look to enjoy the beauty of Jeju? 안성진, Arirang News, Jeju.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Choi Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tommy.
So Ji-hee, let's start over in the Middle East. Israel is fighting one of its worst wildfires in its history, recent history. Tell us more.
That's right. Massive wildfires broke out near Jerusalem on Wednesday morning, leading to widespread evacuations and prompting the declaration of a national emergency. On April 30th, wildfires erupted in the forest area between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, rapidly spreading due to high temperatures and strong winds. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the blazes could reach Jerusalem itself. This has forced the evacuation of several communities and the closure of major roads. Memorial Day ceremonies and Independence Day celebrations planned for Thursday have also been canceled. The Israel Fire and Rescue Services declared their highest alert level, mobilizing over 120 firefighting teams, including assistance from the Israel Defense Forces. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has also sought additional firefighting aid from over a dozen countries. At least 16 people have reportedly been hospitalized for smoke inhalation, and no fatalities have been reported. In Sweden, police have arrested a teenager following a shooting that killed 3 people in the city of Uppsala on Tuesday. The incident has raised concerns about escalating gang-related crimes in the nation. On Wednesday morning local time, authorities apprehended a 16-year-old suspect, with the Swedish prosecution authority confirming that the teen is being held on suspicion for murder. On Tuesday around 5 p.m., a shooting at a hair salon in Uppsala killed 3 men aged between 15 and 20. While the motive remains unclear, authorities are exploring potential gang-related connections, as one victim reportedly had ties to organized crime. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson called the shooting as a terrible act and lamented that brutal and ruthless violence is shaking the country. The nation has been seeing a rise in violent crime in recent years, with its worst mass shooting leading to 10 deaths occurring in February. In the United States, Columbia University student and Palestinian activist Mohsen Mahdawi was released from U.S. immigration detention on Wednesday local time after a federal judge ruled his arrest was unjustified. Mahdawi, a 34-year-old who has permanent U.S. residency or green card status, was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement on April 14th during a naturalization interview in Vermont. The Trump administration attempted to deport Mahdawi under a rarely used statute, alleging his advocacy for Palestinian rights threatened U.S. foreign policy. However, U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Crawford found no evidence that Mahdawi posed a flight risk or danger and ordered his release. On Wednesday, Guinness World Records revealed that the world's tallest and shortest dogs met for the first time in early April. Facilitated by GWR, Reggie, a 7-year-old Great Dane from Idaho, standing at approximately 1 meter, and Pearl, a 4-year-old Chihuahua from Florida, measuring just over 9 centimeters in height, met as part of the institution's 70th anniversary celebrations. Despite a huge height difference, the 2 dogs quickly bonded at Reggie's home, where the event took place. Reggie, known for his gentle demeanor, was cautious around the tiny Pearl, who, according to the owner, is unfazed by larger dogs and enjoys their company.
relief from the dry conditions is on the way. However, this will not be a gentle drizzle. The rain will start in the western regions this morning and then spread to the rest of the country throughout the afternoon. But most of the rain should taper off by tonight. Meanwhile, northwestern Gyeonggi-do province and the mountainous areas of Jeju Island could see up to 60 millimeters. The rest of the country could be seeing 5 to 50 millimeters. It's also going to be quite windy across the country, and especially along the west coast, where we could see typhoon-force gusts with wind advisories being in place there. And this rain will bring a break from the recent heat, with temperatures going down 3 to 7 degrees lower than yesterday. Seoul gets up to 18 degrees Celsius, Daegu, Gyeongju both topping out at 24 degrees. Looking ahead, we have more rain in the forecast for the entire country again during this upcoming long weekend. But today will be a wet and windy day, so please take precautions and stay safe out there.
That is all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.